In this second volume of my top position series, we'll get into some more esoteric top positions. For example, the floating knee position or hands and knees top. You'll also notice that there's some critical movements in order to turn your opponent over while he has his stomach on the ground or he's in a turtle position. Unlike your conventional hold downs, as we discussed in Volume 1, these techniques require a little bit more speed and some strength, but at the same time, with the proper technique, you'll be able to position your opponent on his back and make him vulnerable for striking and finishing holds. To continue with the top hold position, we'll look at it from an angle where you can see the hand and leg positions more effectively. As I secure the position, notice when my opponent turns to the left or right side, I move my legs appropriately, as I was describing towards the end of the last video. Now, what this puts me into is, in this case, the scarf hold position. Reverse scarf hold position. Now, as he moves, he may be trying to pull the arms out. I may have to go with the overhooking technique here. Now, in this case, you have to be careful, because his arms are free, that he may use them to create the space that's necessary for some type of turnover or escape technique. I normally like to get at least one arm underneath and one arm over if need be. In this case here, if he's vigorously trying to push your legs away to straighten your body out for a turnover, you can, in a sense, entangle the arm and get into a much deeper top hold position. Now notice here, by overhooking both arms, it leaves him in a position to use the arms to try to push your body, your lower body, away, thus flattening you out. In that case, I will go with the flow, letting his arm travel through, beyond, and between my legs, thus securing a much more effective top hold position from here. I've managed to use this position quite effectively in controlling opponents in competitive situations. Now you'll notice here, by entrapping both arms, it's virtually impossible to mount any type of offensive. This position here is probably among one of the strongest positions. Now notice what I did. I basically overhooked his right arm with my right arm and then grabbed fingers in the collar. Then what I do is literally plant my body on the same side of the collar grip. The opposite hand is trapped underneath his arm and grabbing the belt. This broken scarf hold is probably also one of the most powerful top hold variations. With this position here, it allowed me to flow into many types of finishing techniques. As you can see here, I can move very quickly into the one-arm choke, or katate jime. Notice by securing the near shoulder, it prevents him from turning away. And then securing the collar with the left hand, applying the choking technique. You may also use a neck cranking application by letting go of the collar and grabbing your own hands. What I'm demonstrating here is essentially a bottom view of the positions of my hands when I do the top hold or the broken top hold position. I'm grabbing my own belt with the right hand and then securing my right wrist with my left hand. What this does in a sense is create a trapping or locking movement of his upper body and neck area as I pin him with my chest. I can then modify that obviously with the various gripping techniques described in my fundamental concepts in ground fighting and grappling. Notice the transition here from your basic top hold, overhooking the arm. Then what I do here is, in a sense, is grab my own belt. Then with my left hand, reach across the neck, grabbing my own wrist. This creates a very tight locking position of his upper body, shoulder and arm area. As I turn to the side to demonstrate the position, you can see how the head is trapped with this variation grip. I can change to some basic grips here if I do not have a belt or something to grab underneath. You can see how I can flow from one to the other. This creates a very strong position as he tries to sit up or turn from left to right. I can basically neutralize his escape attempts. You'll see from this side, I basically underhook the neck, grabbing my own wrist. This is an alternate view of the same hold down. If you notice, one common element with these pinning techniques is the creation, or actually the elimination, of space between my body and his body. If anything, that's one of the most critical aspects of superior top control, is to get that feeling of basically being stuck to him like fly paper. This next movement, the vertical four corner hold, or the mount position, has obviously been popularized by the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu exponents in no-holds-barred fighting. At first, this was compared essentially to the schoolyard bully sitting on top of you, straddled and striking from that position. In the beginning, if you realized, before this was used effectively in realistic fighting, it was compared to that, basically just a schoolyard bully sitting on top of you, and everybody had the answer to escaping from this position. But as you soon realize, without the knowledge of ground fighting or the bottom position techniques, you were virtually helpless in this position. What I showed essentially is how I use my heels as radars or sensitivity detectors to determine how I have to position my feet. He may try to bring the knees up in order to bridge or attempt to an escape technique. I will entwine the legs, or in this case what's called a grapevine technique. I may have to post out appropriately as I feel him turning left to right. These are all things that basically have to be done in a step-by-step process, predetermined with your training partner, to basically understand what is the most effective move to do at the right time. Now, as you can see here, as he tries to bridge towards his right, I use my left leg to post out to prevent him to get the clean turnover. And vice versa. As he bridges towards his left, I use my right leg. Now, what you have to be careful is, obviously, when you post your leg out, you may become vulnerable to getting his knee under and putting you in his half guard position. So you have to modify the movement as I do here. As you can see, as I posted out, he tried to put me in his guard, but then I interlock my ankles, which prevent him from literally getting his legs wrapped around me. That's this next sequence here. So instead of posting out and grapevining, I interlock my own ankles. So in essence, what you've gotten here already is about 4 or 5 variations of the mount position. Notice here how he basically pushes my knees down, putting me in his guard position. In the heat of battle, sometimes it is actually this easy. So that's what I have to be careful of. If I attempt to post with either my right or left leg, I am going to become vulnerable to being put in this position. So I want to be able to basically move into this particular position here where I'm interlocking the legs. What that does essentially is create a ring around his legs so that he cannot take his knees out and put them around my body. Now, you have to be careful though, because from this position, notice how I'm basically just floating on his body. He can quite simply turn me over from here, so I'd have to be able to go back into posting. What this position does too is actually give me a good opportunity to strike, since I have his body pinned. Now notice here how I'm fluctuating from posting to wrapping the legs around, grapevining, or actually interlocking the ankles. So it's this aspect of ground fighting that is virtually really left untaught in a lot of instructional videos. You'll notice here, in an attempt, it's basically a chess game where I might not be able to keep up with his change in motion with the change in motion that I have to do to control him, leading into that particular position on my back. In this case here, we're looking at a mount position that becomes extremely effective when done up high, up around his armpit area. What that does here is make his bridging attempts a little bit more feeble, a little bit less effective. There's really nothing there that he can really push me off with. The lower I am on his body, the more effective his bridging techniques come. So in essence, what I want to do is try to get my knees up high, up around the chest area, which prevent him from escaping easily. As you can see, he tried to push me down. I have one of several things I can do. I can interlock my ankles or literally lift the hands up out of the way so that I can get my knees back up high underneath the armpit. Another controlling technique from the mount position is obviously underhooking the neck and then using my opposite hand, posting left to right as he attempts to bridge in either direction. Now, obviously I'm working, since this is a top control tape, from the point of view of the man in the advantageous position. Obviously there can be counters and applications you can do from the bottom to get him to react one way while you move another. But being on the top, I have to be able to, in a sense, almost predict which direction he's going in by my sensitivity. And that can only be done with actual groundwork practice. It's not so much being taught how to throw a jab or a cross. What you have to do here is really learn how to move in conjunction with your opponent moving. You'll notice here as he bridges from left to right, the appropriate limbs go into action. My right leg and left arm here in this case. And then immediately back to maybe the opposite side as he tries to reverse the technique. Some very simple controlling movements from this position. He may be literally just trying to bench press you or push you away, creating space. Maybe you're preventing him from breathing or about to strike or work into a more effective finishing hold. As he pushes away, what you're going to do is basically slide either of the arms to the opposite side and pinning the arm against his chest. Or in this case, what I've done here is literally trap the wrist by underhooking his neck and modifying my mount position into what I refer to as a triangle stance. Notice here, as I slide the arm away, I control the upper body with the modified stance, knee up high behind his head, and controlling his arm ready for striking technique. Sometimes the most effective movements are the simplest movements. As he tries to escape by pushing my legs away or lowering the knees away from his armpit, I literally just grab what I can get, whether it be his wrist or elbow, and push it up as I secure or re-secure the mount position. Now obviously as he's doing that, it may leave him vulnerable for striking. So you can see here how constantly keeping on the pressure by trying to get the top stance or the top position firmer, tighter, more secure, it's causing him to make more mistakes. As you can see here, he's trying to push me away at the knees, he's trying to push my chest up, he's trying to bridge. All these movements are done by me more securing the top hold or the vertical four-corner hold position. Now, to strike from this position, I have to kind of work on creating openings. If you were to block my strikes, I may try to go for a choke. I may go for a choke while he's defending on that. It'll leave him open for striking techniques. So these are the things you want to keep in mind, almost like developing combinations off your jab, cross, hook, and uppercut. How can I work combinations of striking techniques? A lot of guys, sometimes what they do from the bottom position is just try to hug, keep their body tight, head against your chest area to prevent a finishing hold. But again, what does that create? The ability for striking techniques here. I can use the elbow to drill techniques behind the neck area or into the side of the head, push away against the throat, or actually use punching techniques. Now, if you notice an attempt to escape from here, he pushes his elbows down and away, trying to get underneath. Now, what I've done is basically prevented him from crunching his body in a sense to put you in his guard. Push. Another application basically is as long as I can entangle or entrap his arm up high above his head, it prevents him from bending to right or left or bumping up onto his side. And by doing that, it really creates more opportunities for you for finishing techniques. Here we're looking at what I like to refer to as a modified type of mount position. What happens is, as I attempt a choking technique, he senses an opening to the opposite side, and as he turns, I adjust my body appropriately. Basically, left knee down, right knee up. Now what this does is create the opportunity for chokes, arm locks, or striking techniques. As you can see here, as I go for the inside collar, he attempts to escape. I bring my knee up high, up behind the head area. This leaves me in a position to essentially be able to determine each and every possible move he can make. I'm in a very dominant position here. If he tries to turn in, I can be ready for that. If he continues to try to turn out, I can prevent that. And while I'm securing the hold, he will try to escape, thus creating opportunities such as this arm lock here, this cross-body arm lock, or jujigatame, or the one-arm choke, kata hajime, or even variations of your basic sliding collar lapel choke. Many possibilities here. Here we're looking at a naked variation of a choke where I use the knife edge against the carotid artery. An interesting drill is to basically work the left to right side of this position here. After you've worked the drill right and left, then work on the finishing holes to the right and left side. Now, when securing the mount position, what a lot of guys try to do is literally squeeze their partner or opponent while on top of them. What this does is it essentially leaves you vulnerable to a turnover technique. What you want to do here is try to create the ability, or to develop the ability, to loosen and tighten your position accordingly. As he tries to turn over, you'll notice how I open up my stance, creating him, giving him the ability or the opportunity to turn on his stomach. Actually creates an opportunity for me, because I can obviously choke or strike from this position more effectively. To give you an understanding of what I mean, by keeping my mount or knees tightly held together, it can cause me to turn over as he tries to bridge. In this case, as I widen my base, bringing the knees apart, it creates the opportunity for him to turn onto the stomach, thus allowing me to continue with my attack. Here what I do is basically come up onto one knee. It's very possible that the person I'm on top of has very broad shoulders or is quite large in the midsection, so I'll have to modify that position by keeping one foot down and knee up. This next position, the floating hold, also known in judo circles as ukigatame, is very effective, is a strong position that can be done off of throws, since your knee is right there. If you'll notice, when I work into the gripping applications with this, basically what I do is either control the upper chest area or the solar plexus with my knee. Now, if you've practiced at all in judo or jiu-jitsu, a lot of the holes stem off of the sleeve and lapel grip. As I throw the opponent down, my hands essentially remain in that position. So if I bring the knee up across the chest or solar plexus, as I do here, I've in a sense enhanced my throwing technique by not only slamming him against the ground, but then neutralizing him against the ground, giving me more of an opportunity to either strike, finish, run, or myself enter into groundwork, which in a sense I really would not want to do in the street. Here we're looking at a transitional drill working from left to right side. We're going from right floating hold to left floating hold. Again, the floating hold more ideally stems off of very effective throws, like major outer reaps or foot sweeps. I went too slow. And action. You'll notice
It's been going.
there'll be variations of the floating hold. In this case here, I'm controlling the far side of his body by grabbing the lapel and belt and driving the knee in a sense, controlling his body from both sides, in the inner part and the outer part. And as you saw there, it can lead to finishing techniques such as the arm lock, or in this case, striking techniques. If you notice, the knee is kind of a wedge in between my opponent and myself, giving me not only the distance to strike effectively, but also preventing him from moving or effectively countering. Another interesting top position or top control position is sometimes referred to as a triangle hold. In essence, it's the leg triangle choking application used as a hold down. In this particular instance, I'm using it, it's stemming from an escape from the side hold, where I do the turnover and then work into the pin technique. So rather than have to immediately readjust my top position, if I had the opportunity to turn him over, rather than have to go right away into the side hold or swing all the way around into the mount position, I can basically stick with that position there as I encircle his head area with my legs and interlock the knees into the triangle. Another application, basically from facing my opponent off the back. Now, this may be an attempted triangle choke. Now, what happens a lot as the person starts countering that or trying to pull away from or spin around, you could, in a sense, follow up with it. But please be careful when you practice this, because if you were to turn completely around while maintaining a tight triangle technique, you could seriously injure your opponent, or at the minimum, choke him out very quickly. And obviously that leaves him wide open for striking techniques. Again, you'll notice here, not only will you have the actual pressure of the figure four squeezing, but your upper body pushing down up on the shoulder area. I do not even have my instep behind the knee area because this technique can be that effective. In this portion of the videotape, we're going to refer to what's known as the hands and knees position. This position is very common in ground fighting, and without a very strong understanding from this hands and knees position, you cannot enter into the basic holds that we've discussed up until this point. What I want to show, first of all, is how to go from taking your opponent down into the pinning techniques from the hands and knees position. Various ways of doing that. Number one is reaching across, in a sense, taking out a stilt, in a sense, or a post, and then driving the weight forward. Now, you'll see as we go on, there'll be many different ways he may react to this type of turnover technique or top control position. In this case, basically, he falls directly onto his side, and I can utilize my positioning to work my way into, in this particular case, the side hold. So we're going from hands and knees to the side hold position or side control. Notice in the first variation, I reached through and grabbed his arm with both of my hands. In this case, I split it up. I'll grab an arm with one arm and a leg with the other, thus taking out his posts from both the upper and lower body as opposed to just the upper body, as I do here. Now, as I explained, he may react differently in this attempt of a turnover. In the first two variations, as I pulled his arm out, he basically fell to his side and back. A more competent fighter may try to flatten his body out immediately, sensing the vulnerability of going onto his back. So you'll notice here, instead of literally turning onto his side, he'll try to flatten his body out. So what I'll do is, by maintaining the grip on the arm, I will leap over the body, thus creating the opportunity of putting him on his back, rather than simply being able to turn him over from that one side. So instead of him actually turning over, I have to force it by jumping over his body and, in a sense, torquing him over by bringing the arms with me as I jump over. Notice here, as I come over, the arms follow, and then I can move into the various hold downs. Here's a closer look as to what's happening. Notice how he flattens his body out rather than me getting a completely clean turnover. So I have a couple of variations here. If he does flatten his body out, I can basically mount him from the rear. I can do a rear mount and work it from there, or try to get him to turn onto his back. You'll notice how he has to, because I basically took out his forearm. And by jumping over and maintaining the grip on his arm, it causes him to turn over completely. Another variation is basically the underhook, or in wrestling circles, sometimes it's referred to as the pancake movement. Basically, I'm flipping him over as a pancake. But I also take out the far arm, his posting arm, by drawing it in towards my body, thus literally almost eliminating any upper body stability that he has. And in this particular case, I moved conveniently into the scarf hold. He may have come in, it may be a feeble attempt at a single or double leg takedown, where I trap the one arm, even though he got the other arm through. You'll notice here, as he tries to grab my hip to drive me back, I will just angle off and work into the turnover. This particular hand positioning leads very effectively into a top control and then striking technique. Or in this case, using a kind of a strangle technique, or a collapsing of the diaphragm to prevent him from breathing by bringing the neck up high. Look at it from this angle here. I pull the arm out. Again, instead of actually even flattening out, as he did to prevent the turnover, he may be attempting to sit out, or literally go onto the opposite side, as you see there. So what I do is basically go with the flow. Watch again carefully. If I pull the arm out, I previously was just turning him over, or jumping over his body and turning him over. In this case, what I have to do is circle around his head and push him in the same direction that he's leaning. So as I pull him in, he collapses to his left side, so what I do is work over to his right side and then turn him over. Again, very minute movement in detail, but very effective in application. Now what we're looking at is a very common judo defensive technique. I mean, basically, as opposed to just standing up and stomping or striking your opponent, there's some ways of turning him over. As I did, I grabbed the far side of his body and basically just turned him over, as I would be unrolling a carpet, for example. And vice versa. I would grab the inside of his body, or the near side, and flip him over to the opposite direction. And notice how I utilize my body as well to get the turnover, to complete the turnover. Almost like a steamroller effect. As I bring the body over, I drive with my chest into the side hold. Now again, we're looking at very basic turnovers now, as we gradually get into some more complex movements. Because obviously the more competent the bottom position person is, the more difficult it will be to use some of these simple turnover techniques. What I'm doing here now is grabbing opposite sides. I'm grabbing the far top corner and the near lower corner. What that does there is basically drive his body in the direction to create a weakness. So if you notice in the beginning, I did the far side, the near side as I demonstrate here, and then one far top corner, near bottom corner. Driving the shoulder down and the hip up, creating the openings that I need for the turnover. Another very powerful position is the turtle position. What I did here now is try to attack what is available, what could be. As you see here, I tried the basic turnover. We're getting into a higher skill level here, where instead of being just flipped over, he goes into the turtle position, which makes it very difficult for me to just basically flip him over. Then I would have to use some kind of strategy where I hit the ankles, trying to drive the shoulders, and creating just enough of an angling of his body to get me to use my chest to finish the turnover. Notice here, this time I tried the inner body, trying to turn him over. He goes into the turtle position, and then I follow up by trapping the ankles. Now in this particular case, I worked on the far side, both on the shoulder and the ankle. What may be more effective is actually trying to go for the inner ankle and the far shoulder. If you'll notice, that's why some fighters will try to keep their insteps flat on the ground. When that happens, there are alternate ways of working the technique, as you'll see. Now notice here, when I went for the far ankle, I went for the near shoulder. As I'm driving one corner down, I'm lifting the opposite corner. That's in essence what I'm doing. As I lift one corner and drive the other corner, it kind of creates an opportunity for me to drive my upper body into his chest area. In this particular instance, I see that any type of turnover effect just will not work. He's very strong on the bottom. So what I'll actually do is attack his collar and belt to create just enough space for me to get my heels in and start working on the choking techniques. Now what this does is it creates the opportunity for him to have to react. He may try to turn over, so I may be able to get him on my back. Another interesting turnover here. Again, we're looking at a very strong turtle position. I don't see any possible ways of turning him over onto his side. So what I'll do is basically drive the top of his head down into the mat and literally flip his lower body up over his head. Now this may only be possible if you develop the momentum or speed. Basically you gotta have to combine the driving motion with the pulling motion to get him over. Now at the same time you have to look for the openings, a flailing limb to grab. In that case I could have done it with my leg or my own arm, and then going into the side hold. Basically just keep in mind I'm driving the neck down. By driving the neck down and bringing the lower body up on top of his head, it almost creates the necessity of having to flip over or do a forward roll to prevent any potential injury to his neck. You'll see here, I get an under grip on the belt, drive the elbow into the upper back, literally take my leg and drive it down towards the top of his head, in a sense jamming his neck into his head area and bringing the lower body up over. You have to move quickly into one of your top positions, whether it be the side hold, the scarf hold, the mount, the top hold, the reverse scarf hold, and so forth. You'll notice that as I turn him over, I have to immediately be in a position to secure the hold position, because he can, in a sense, cover up, bring the knees and elbows in tight, thus preventing me from securing the hold. This is sort of a variation, a change-up. I may also create momentum by stepping over and in turn driving his neck down with the opposite leg. Instead of using my left leg, I step over and use my right leg for the turnover. This can be a very effective turnover. I mean, basically what you want to do when fighting from the top is to keep the pressure on, to get your partner or opponent to move or change his body position. And it's within that change of body position that opportunities are created to secure other holds or possible finishing or striking techniques. Here's another extremely effective turnover movement. There may be a very powerful turtle position here. Any attempts at grabbing the collar or the belt, or he may not have it, may not work. So in a sense, what I'm going to do is take a step over the body as I secure his waist and use my own body momentum to turn him over. Now, you have to secure something immediately, because you can just keep rolling over and over in the same position. But notice, as I turn him over, my right arm hooks through and grabs his right arm, thus preventing him to continue the roll over, and in turn working into one of my top control positions. You should try this with your partner. Get him to put himself in the turtle position and have you try to turn him over. The more resistance he gives you, the more variations and techniques you'll need. You'll have to go from grabbing, driving, turning over, using the chest to push angle off, try to get those hips, upper body moving. This other variation here requires what I call a step through technique. Now notice when he grabs his own collar to prevent the choke and flattens his body out, it really leaves me little to work with. So I'm going to grab the collar from behind and the belt and literally step through with my right leg and, in a sense, rolling out, doing a rollout, a basic judo fall. And the momentum puts me in a rear mounted position off my back. Here we're looking at several ways of securing a top position from the knees down position. Most judo and jiu-jitsu schools begin groundwork off the knees, so you want to have an arsenal of techniques to create a top position. In this case here, what I'm doing is a basic driving forward with my left leg as I pull down on the sleeve and drive the collar. This is the exact opposite in a sense. Instead of driving forward with my arms, I'm in a sense stepping back. In essence, what he's doing is what I did to him first. He's trying to drive forward and take me onto my side, so I step back with my left knee and take him down with me, in a sense going with his energy. In this variation, I do what's called a kind of a duck under and go around. I drive the arm up. Notice how I arch my back to prevent him from literally driving my head back down and possibly putting me into a front headlock, and then spinning around quickly into the reverse mount position. This other drill is what I call basically a spin and pin drill. In this particular drill, basically you want to just move around, whether it be clockwise or counterclockwise, and secure a position immediately. You may even have a third partner yell pin, and wherever position you find yourself as you're spinning around, you secure it. Another sensitivity drill, in this case we're both in the top hold position. We roll back and forth up and down the dojo or the training area, thus looking for possibilities of where there's weaknesses and strengths in this position, whether you be on the bottom or top. Not only are these good for developing the sensitivity, but actually they're excellent controlling, understanding balance, and strength and endurance type drills. Here's another variation. I find my opponent in my guard, so what we practice is basically rolling with it. In essence, what I'm doing is going from the mount position to putting the opponent in my guard. I'm going from mount to guard, mount to guard. And obviously he's going from being mounted to being inside the guard position. It's when you develop this familiarity with the movements that you can fight and flow effectively. Here's another application of trying to break the very strong turtle position. What I do here is try to drive the knee in between the knee and his knee and elbow, because what he's trying to do here is prevent himself from not only being choked but turned over, or lose a limb to a possible finishing hold. So what I've done is basically used my knee to create the minute space that I need to get my hand in there for either a turnover or the application of a finishing technique. You notice here, as he uses more and more resistance, I have to drive the knee in more and more vigorously, and then working on a technique to possibly go with the finishing hold or turnover. Now, as described in my Destructive Low Kicks Volume 2, we try to delve into the area of striking while the opponent is in the hands and knees position. A lot of this type of mentality has been lost while people are switching over into the grappling arts. If you find your opponent in this position, you do have a choice of entering into grappling, as I do here, or taking a quarter or half step back and working into striking. Since he is on his hands and knees position, he does become vulnerable to a lot of the low kicking techniques, knees and shin kicks. That is why these types of moves are actually becoming illegal in no-holds-barred competition, which is a total irony there. No-holds-barred refers to no holds being illegal, but in a sense, striking techniques while the opponent is on his hands and knees have become illegal in a lot of these types of tournaments because of their effectiveness. So I included this in the top control series because being on the top while your opponent is on his hands and knees creates opportunities for both grappling, finishing holds, and striking techniques. To end this particular series, I have to go over what I call osaikomi kata, or the hold down kata. If there's any way to practice holds with a partner, it's this way. We start from the scarf hold, we work into the one arm hold as I demonstrate here, position A and position B. So we're looking at the same hold with two different leg positions. The third position is the side hold position. Position number 4 is the top hold. Position number 5 is the reverse scarf hold. And position number 6 is the mount or vertical four corner hold. Now that you know the 6 basic positions, let's show the form in its entirety. Basically, I start out with a takedown. I move into the scarf position, or position number 1. From there, I move into position number 2A, then 2B, which is knee into the side. Position number 3 is the side hold. I change the hands, shift into position number 4, which is the top hold. Underhook the far arm, slide into position number 5, which is the reverse scarf hold, which puts me in position number 6, the vertical four corner hold. I highly recommend that you go over this last segment several times, doing it slowly with your partner. It's the practice of this particular form here, I truly believe, will help you develop the seamless movements from one position to another. Going from scarf hold to one arm hold, position A and B, to side hold, top hold, reverse scarf hold, and then mount position again. Now, as I go over this, you have to look at how I make the transitions from each of these positions. Once you can do this position smoothly, you'll be virtually ready for any type of escape attempt or ground fighting counterattack that your bottom position opponent will try to mount on you. If you notice from this angle here, moving into position number 3, the side hold, it gets a little bit intricate in the hand area, which I'll explain in a moment with some close-ups. But you'll notice how I begin speeding up the flow into the 6 basic hold downs. This particular series of techniques really has not been shown before on videotape. It's the sequence of techniques that I've developed here scientifically based on the degree of effectiveness of the positions. Notice I'm starting with the scarf hold and then ending in the mount position. Scarf hold position, one arm, position A, one arm, position B. Side hold, right hand and left hand changing positions. Underhooking, sliding into the reverse, and then bringing the leg over into the mount. There's one very important aspect when moving into the side hold position. You notice here, as I secure the scarf hold position, and I bring the arm across into the one arm hold, I still have the scarf hold leg position. Then I change into the knee into the side position. Now, notice with the side hold, my right arm moves first. The reason for that is so that he does not put me in his guard. Now, as I bring the right arm over, the left arm moves, and then flow into the remaining 3 movements. Let's watch it again. Takedown, scarf hold, one arm hold A, one arm hold B, side hold, Right arm, left arm moves, top hold, underhooking both arms. Left leg comes out into reverse scarf hold and then mount position. Position 1, position 2A, position 2B, position 3, position 4, position 5, position 6, finishing up with the mount position. Takedown. 1, 2A, 2B, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now let's look at different components of this. Notice from the scarf hold position, I bring the arm across and I secure position A of the one arm hold. So we're going from 1 to 2A. Notice I did not change my leg position yet. It's still the same position as the scarf hold. Now, when I move to the side hold, notice how I slide the left arm under the neck and control his arm, pinning it with my chest, and basically securing the textbook side hold. I'm already in position B of the one arm hold here with the knee into the side. You'll notice that the particular hold downs are done in a sequence naturally. By having my knee into his side from position 2B, it automatically leads into the side hold position. Now, from the side hold, you notice my right arm moves first before I scoot into the top hold. Now, why is that? If I were to just try to move into the top hold from the side hold, I may be left vulnerable to an escape or him putting me in the guard. Notice here how his knee comes in order to attempt an escape. By moving my right arm first, I in a sense neutralize any position or movement towards that side. Now the transition into the reverse scarf hold is a little complicated. I overhook the arm as opposed to underhooking it from the previous top hold, and then slide the right leg through in this fashion. So after I literally overhook the arm, I slide the right leg through and I find myself into the reverse scarf hold position. And this reverse scarf hold position naturally leads into the mount because of its effectiveness in bringing the leg over. Now I've done some arm manipulation here because as I step over from the reverse scarf hold, I've already pinned one arm, so I will reach across and bring the other arm across, thus pinning both arms across his chest. Now, a way to make this form or kata even more complex is to add finishing holes with each pin. Now you can see how a class can get pretty intricate, where I have position 1 with a couple of locks. This is position 2, A and 2B with locks. Position 3, side hold with locks. Then I move into position 4, the top hold. Or I'm still here in the side hold, now working chokes. Then top hold, working into arm locks. Position number 5, reverse scarf hold, working on arm locks and possible chokes. Then obviously the mount position with its slew of finishing holds. Hopefully this particular kata will help you in developing your top control series.